So I want to explain how to create art out of boredom and loneliness. So what do I mean by this, right? Boredom and loneliness is connected in terms of creating art. When yeah, okay, so I'll explain. So look, I'll explain how boredom and loneliness is connected and how you can use both of these to create art. So boredom and loneliness is connected by this, right? So like everything that you like doing when you're bored, you like to talk about it, right? So like everything that you enjoy doing when you're bored, you want to share that enjoyment, right? And I'll go ahead and list a whole bunch of things that I enjoy doing when I'm bored, and I'll give you. Okay, let me just go ahead and do that. Okay, so things that I enjoy when I'm bored, right? Let's see, psychology. Trying to think of what else. Yeah, that pretty much sums me up. That sums me up. So basically, I have all these interests. I like to learn about psychology. I like to learn about politics. I like to watch anime. I like to play Minecraft. I like to mess with computers. I like to listen to Juice WRLD. That kind of like sums me up pretty good. Uh, well, unless I want to put drugs in there, but I'm just putting mushrooms. But okay, so I have all of these interests, right? All of these things that I enjoy. Now, uh, the way I can handle my loneliness, right, is I can find someone that has an interest in psychology, that has an interest in politics, that has an interest in anime, that has an interest in Juice WRLD, that has an interest in mushrooms, Minecrafts, computers, right? Like, mainly, it's these two: psychology, politics, and mushrooms. Which they're kind of, you know, in the same area too, but mainly those three things. I do love Juice WRLD and I love anime, I love Minecraft, I love computers, but I don't love them as much as I love these three. So basically, let's see this, right? So basically, I want to communicate not all of this, right? But I want to communicate what I enjoy doing when I'm bored, right? Because my loneliness is the the desire to communicate uh, what you like doing when you're bored, right? Like to communicate that enjoyment, the enjoyment that I get from all of these things. To communicate that is how I deal with loneliness, and I'm doing this right now. Actually, I'm bored right now, or I'm not bored, but I was bored, and I wanted to talk about psychology, right? I'm like, okay, I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling bored. Let me talk about psychology. Let me make a video out of boredom, right? So I'm teaching psychology out of boredom. I like learning about it, but I also like teaching. And teaching and learning is the same thing. It happens at the same time. So, when I say that, I mean both of them at the same time. But to be able to communicate it, that's the challenge, right? Is that I need to, yes, I can learn about psychology, right? But there comes to a point where, it's like milking that enjoyment, right? How can I enjoy psychology even more than I do, right? So yeah, I can get into the books and just start learning it and just binge on knowledge, but I can make it fun, right? I can make videos out of it, videos that people can watch, like just like this one, right? Uh, and yeah, I can satisfy my boredom and loneliness. Just I kind of got lost a little bit. So basically, right, like this, right? Boredom is finding what you enjoy, right? What you enjoy. That's what boredom is, right? So it's the urge to find out what you enjoy in life. Like I'm bored, let me go find something that's enjoyable. Okay, now loneliness is to communicate. See, here's the thing about loneliness, right? Is that it can be very confusing emotion because it can feel like you loneliness is just like oh, you need to talk to somebody. You just need someone to talk to. You need someone to uh, you know just be around somebody, right? And so this is kind of like the misconception. I mean, because that's where aloneness comes in. Aloneness is just well, I don't even know if aloneness is an emotion, but it's basically the state of not being around anybody, and if you're by yourself, you're aloneness, right? So that would be aloneness, right? But loneliness is an emotion that you can feel when you're around people. Like I could be around like a whole bunch of people, and I could just be the loneliest like I've ever felt. You know, I can feel more lonely around people than I do feel by myself, right? But uh, what is the solution to loneliness? Why is some people can take away my loneliness and certain people can't? And you know, how can I, you know, deal with my loneliness when I'm by myself and I don't have someone to talk to? So what loneliness is, and this is kind of like a realization I had, you know, me trying to understand it, is that loneliness is not the desire to be around somebody or the desire to talk to another human being. It is nothing but to communicate your mind, right? To be able to express your mind. That is what loneliness is. It's the desire to express your mind. Okay? Kind of write it. Okay. Oh shit, dude, I'm writing so much. Dude, you know what's crazy is that I really haven't had this much energy to make a video. Like this is the first time like I've been able to make a video in a while, and like I'm so happy. But okay, so loneliness is the desire to express your mind. Okay, so like I already said, it's not the desire to talk to another human being. It's not the desire to be around another human being. It's just the desire to express your mind, to communicate your enjoyment of what you like doing when you're bored. Okay. Now, but it's not just linked to just, you know, communicating what you enjoy doing when you're bored, but it's also about, you know, communicating your emotions in terms of like I kind of like think about it like this, right? If you know, something affected you, let's say okay, because loneliness isn't just loneliness doesn't come from boredom, right? Loneliness is its own emotion. And the way I'm kind of communicating this and trying to describe this is kind of making it sound like loneliness comes from boredom. But loneliness is like its own emotion, right? And I think that you could use loneliness to also find out what you enjoy doing when you're bored, just because you're really just trying to communicate your loneliness. And sorry, I'm not making any sense. So when something happens to you, let's say something traumatic happens to you, and you're just kind of like shocked. You're like, whoa, oh my god! I'm like, what just happened to me? I'm trying to think of it like a certain event. Okay, let's say you work at a convenience store, gas station, whatever, and you get robbed. Somebody pulled out a gun on you, and they had it pointed at you, and like, you know, your life was threatened. You thought you were about to die. You know, that could be very traumatizing. And then let's say the person's like, hey, give me all your money. You give them all the money, blah blah, and then they leave, and you call the cops, everything. Talk to the cops, but after, you know, you talk to the cops, you know, you finish your shift and you go home, that's still on your mind. You know, it's still like, and it still needs to be processed, right? That trauma, this is called emotional processing, but that trauma needs to be processed, right? And you know, the mind knows how to process trauma by itself, as long as you let it and you don't, you know, run away. But you can process trauma just by, you know, like, sorry, that made no sense. You could process trauma just by communicating it and expressing it. Just by you expressing the trauma of the event can release the trauma, if that makes sense. So, right, like, if something is traumatic to me, I can sit here and process it and just be like, oh my god, what just happened? What just happened? Or I could learn to communicate that trauma and yeah, and release it, which would be faster too. Okay, so as I was watching the video over, I realized I didn't really, you know, explain what I meant by releasing trauma, you know, by expressing your mind, right? So with the example I gave, which is, I think it was talking about me, you know, getting robbed let's you work at a gas station, you get robbed, and then you have to release that trauma. And I was talking about the best way to release that trauma, which, you know, there's the emotional processing that the mind does, but a lot of times trauma can be so overwhelming that it's hard for us to just sit still and, you know, let our minds process it. But what you can do is express it and you can release it. So instead of, you know, suppressing it, So yeah, instead of suppressing it and running from it, you can face it by expressing it. So expression over suppression, if that makes sense. So yeah, trauma can be overwhelming. It can be hard to sit still and process it, and let the emotional processing take over. So being able to learn how to express it can be, and this is where loneliness comes in too. Let me write it down. This is what I was talking about, loneliness. If you, okay, like this, right? If something traumatizing happens to you and you can't, and it's so overwhelming where you can't sit still and process it, and this can be for anybody with anything, right? The best way to release that trauma and process those emotions is just to express those emotions. But the problem is that a lot of times people don't want to hear what you have to say. Right? We do have venting, right? You can vent, and if I kind of do this at work too. If a mean customer comes up and cursing and shit, and he's kind of calling me names for no reason, blah blah blah. I can vent to my manager, vent to my coworkers, and be like, hey, that blah blah blah, and they'll listen to me, right? And I guess that's a little bit of expressing and trauma releasing. But when it comes to big stuff, like my mommy didn't love me, my dad left me and shit like that. When it comes to things like that, where we can't really sit with ourselves and let our minds process it, and it's hard for us to communicate it and express it, and it's hard to find somebody that will listen to us. So this is where therapy and therapists, this is where that comes in, and that's why I think it's called psychotherapy, and that's why it's so useful for overcoming childhood trauma, is because you have somebody that can actually sit there and listen to you and actually give you good feedback, and not it's a non-judgmental environment, and it allows you for full expression, right? But you can do that for yourself, and by communicating and expressing your mind, you can release trauma. And I'll kind of give you an example. So okay, so with this drawing, I don't know if you can really see it. I'll hold it up to the camera. Okay, so this drawing that I drew, this was me processing my trauma with the art that I drew, right? And I mean, I don't know if I can get most of it in the camera. Try most of it. And so I drew that to release trauma. I was struggling one day with a lot of loneliness, and and what that represents, by the way, is the past being too scary to look at, and the future being too scary to look at, and the little boy in the middle is just stuck in the the future is scary, and you can't turn around, you can't go forward, and you're just stuck in this one place. And it's that's how I felt emotionally, where the past was scary, the future is scary, and I'm frozen, and I can't look back and I can't look forward, and I'm just stuck. And that's kind of what that was. And that's how I was kind of expressing my childhood trauma and my anxiety for the future, and I released it with that art. When I drew that, it was suddenly a weight was lifted off my chest, and I released that trauma, whatever that was. But what I was trying to get at is that by expressing your mind, how I was expressing my emotions, drawing and stuff like that, you have to, I honestly, you have to find the best way, for you to express your mind. I can't, for me, drawing was very beneficial, and also talking on camera is very beneficial, for doing stuff like that. But it's not the same for everybody, and I can't tell you what. Actually, I will in the video, or in the future, I will make a video teaching you how to let your mind emotionally process. First of all, I'll teach emotional processing and how to let that happen naturally, and then I'm gonna also teach how to release trauma by creating art. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. If you can find the best way to communicate your loneliness, that is also something that you like doing when you're bored. Okay, so let me kind of explain, right? Because me talking to you on camera, I didn't, it didn't really come from, because it kind of makes sense, right? So I have an interest in psychology, and I want to talk about it, which I'm doing right now, right? Which I could have did with pen and paper, or I could have did on camera. But what's funny is the reason why I chose the camera and not to do pen and paper is because I'm more comfortable on camera than I am writing pen and paper, and I am trying to develop that skill of writing, but my comfortability with speaking on camera is much higher, especially since when I was a kid, I've always been fascinated and curious with the camera and just filming myself, making little movies and stuff like that. And I had a channel too when I was a little kid, but like a year ago too, over a year ago, when I was in this having a little identity crisis, and I just got out of the military and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I had a mushroom trip, and a mushroom trip told me that I should start a YouTube channel. It wasn't directly like, oh, mushrooms was communicating to me, oh, you need to start a YouTube channel. It was just more like how I understood the internet and how I saw the internet and how I saw like how people were uploading. I saw it wasn't just pointless. It was, there was a point to it, right? And so I created a channel without actually knowing why I created the channel. And I created videos without actually knowing why I'm creating videos, right? But the whole thing of what I was doing was I was communicating my loneliness with the channel. And I really didn't know, about the boredom thing and about, my interest in psychology. I had an interest in psychology since middle school, right? But I didn't really become aware of it until like, a few weeks ago, probably, a month ago. So really it was just blind communication. And I think that's what a lot of people do, right? And that kind of gets confused as creating art too, is you do blind communication. I'm not gonna write it, but blind communication is basically what I was doing with my channel over a year ago. Is I didn't know what I was communicating, but I just know I like to communicate, on this camera, and it feels good to talk. You know, I don't even know what I'm talking about, or I'm just talking about something random, right? It was weird, right? And I used it as an opportunity to learn about myself and to figure out what I do like when I'm bored, right? But the whole point I was trying to get at is that you can learn to deal with your loneliness head on, or oh shoot. Now I got lost. Okay, so you can handle loneliness by itself, and you can handle boredom by itself, right? But I think the best thing to do is to handle both of them at the same time. Because I believe that these two things, these two emotions, is the reason why we have a lot of problems, majority of our problems in society, right? It's just because like people don't know themselves, right? People are still in the survival mind. They don't understand, their boredom. Like they're doing things to satisfy their boredom that they don't actually like doing, like drugs, or binging social media, like binging Netflix, binging pornography, like junk food. Like it goes on and on and on. The list goes on, right? It's you trying to satisfy this boredom but it's endless. It's a loop, and I just don't get. I mean, I do get it, but like it's sad that a lot of people don't see. Because I immediately saw this and I was like, this is gonna drive me insane if I keep going this cycle of just constantly trying to satisfy my boredom with whatever dopamine pleasure that I can find. Like it was like I was a mouse on a wheel, dude. It was like, dude, this isn't going anywhere. Like eventually you're like, this has to stop. I need to like sit back and reflect and be like, okay, I need to find something else I like doing when I'm bored, right? I am trying to say that people do things to satisfy their boredom, to satisfy their loneliness that they don't want to do, that causes problems in their life and causes problems for themselves just because they don't understand themselves. And what I am trying to do is I am trying to explain boredom and explain loneliness and explain how you can understand your boredom and your loneliness and how you can navigate them and satisfy them and create beautiful art. And so this is all that I'm teaching, right? That's pretty much it. Like I can't think of how I wanted to, like where I wanted to go with that or how I wanted to end it. But dude, I've been trying to communicate this for so long. Like this whole video was just had everything that I wanted to say, like pretty much. And like I finally think I got the message out. And so yeah, I'm gonna be making videos. My channel is just gonna be based off of it's mostly gonna be psychology related. I'm not gonna get into politics, and maybe I'll touch on mushrooms, but I'm gonna be diving deep into psychology and just understanding the psychology of creating art. You know how what happens in the mind, you know, when you create art. And so that's what I'm gonna be explaining. And I want to hope that I can inspire a lot of people and teach a lot of people how to create art and bring more, what is the word, art in their lives. I don't know how to say it, but yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. If you found it informative and enjoyable, you know, definitely leave a like and comment and subscribe. You know, support me. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you on the next video.